Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to all of you. I'm Shubhendu Parth, editor of DataQuest, and your host for today's webinar on standard-based defense in-depth security for critical manufacturing. The webinar is part of the magazine's capacity building and information sharing initiative, where we bring to you experts from the industry to talk about technology trends, latest developments, and CIO challenges, as also how to training programs and strategy sessions. In today's session, we have with us three distinguished guests with a lot of experience across enterprise IT, operational technology, and cybersecurity. They will take us through the steps and processes of DID, or Defense in Depth approach to cybersecurity. Sir, correct me if I'm wrong. As I understand, the Defense in Depth approach can also be thought of as a series of layered defense mechanisms. In fact, it is like a multi-layer security ring that we have around the VIPs, and which is designed in a way that if the first mechanism fails, the second and then the third layer gets activated to thwart the attack. In fact, what this means is that we are building redundancies in our security layer to increase the security of a system as a whole and to address many different attack vectors. In fact, I was recently going through the Fortinet website and found a very interesting analogy describing defense in depth. It described it as a castle approach because it mirrors the layered defense mechanism of medieval castles. So before one can in fact penetrate a castle, one has to cross the moat, the ramparts, the drawbridge, towers, battlements, and so on and so forth. But I was also thinking, why do we need so many layers? Because whenever I have a discussion with CIOs and even with in our organizations, and everybody says, we are concerned, but our existing security system is working fine. I mean, there is a paranoia, but still there is also this uh, 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 thing that yes, we are working fine. So we all understand and know that the hyper connected world, traditional security no longer works, and there is a need for a different proactive approach to deal with a series of automated attacks. And particularly when the Internet of Things is also being weaponized to launch the DDoS attacks. In fact, in its recent statement before the Parliament of India, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology informed that the Indian citizens, commercials, and legal entities faced, almost more than 7 lakh cyber attacks, and this is the data till 2020, August 2020. Experts also point out that the total number of DDoS attacks may double to around 14.5 million by 2022, a massive number of a hike that we are looking at. And the threat, we are also aware that during the peak of border skirmish during the June month, hackers based in China attempted to penetrate 40,000 of Indian infrastructure and banking sector infrastructure. And we are also aware about the use of artificial intelligence and big analytics by rogue companies, including some of the neighboring countries, for profiling over 10,000 influential Indians as part of the hybrid warfare that aims to cripple the economy by hitting the businesses. And this all becomes more important, particularly for the critical infrastructure and manufacturing sectors. So I was just wondering, and maybe that's what we want to touch upon. What do we do about this? Uh, while the data and information security was always important, COVID and the work from home thereafter has also unleashed a security nightmare, which is at a scale that's like we never imagined it. And today's CIOs, both of you, and also Iqbal must be interacting with many other CIOs, are on their toes, kind of toes to, and they're ready to throw in more money. But will this all help? Can all these increase in investment on cybersecurity controls make modern enterprises really safe? So today we will hear this from our experts. And to begin with, I would like to welcome Mr. Anand Sengupta, who is the Group CIO, Carrier Aircon Limited. Mr. Sengupta has over 25 years experience in digital technologies and business IT. He has been driving digital transformation and managing enterprise-wide infrastructure with core competencies in implementation and managing SAP ERP environment and implementing global applications and projects. Thank you, Mr. Sengupta, for joining us today. I would also like to welcome Mr. Kamal Dhamija. He's the Chief Security Officer, Apollo Tyres. Mr. Dhamija is a technology evangelist and cybersecurity expert. He has a lot of experience in strategical, technical, business and project management. He has also more than 10 years experience in information security, governance, pre-sales and solutioning, project and vendor management, and he's an expert in security functions, information system audits, control implementations, and business continuity management, which is very critical in this hyper-connected digital world, which is where we face a lot of threats, and particularly in scenarios like COVID, where business continuity was a big issue. And last but not the least, I welcome Mr. Asif Iqbal as a senior specialist OT cybersecurity with Fortinet. Mr. Iqbal is helping in solving cybersecurity challenges involving operational technology and critical infrastructure industries. He has more than a decade of experience in cybersecurity architecture, risk management, penetration testing, assurance, and compliance for critical infrastructure, which is a key area that we would like to discuss and touch upon, because the critical infrastructures and the certain, as also pointed out, the increasing threat to India's security. And but just one, before we start the session, I have some housekeeping essentials for the participants. As was already announced, during the session, the participants will be on the listen-only mode. However, they will be able to send questions through the chat, and we will take it up depending on the time available with us. For the participants, their feedback is also very important for us, and I request all participants to submit their feedback at the end of the webinar. Besides, to make the session interactive, we have poll questions during the presentation, and the participants can select the option displayed on the screen and send us their responses, which will be displayed immediately. There would be a 30-second to 40-second window to respond. So thank you everybody for joining us today. And to begin with, may I request Mr. Anand Sengupta to share his views on the information and data security challenges in the hyper-connected digital world, the way that he sees this from his vertical point of view and also from the overall digital economy perspective. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shubhendu. Is my voice clear, right? Yeah, thank you, Shubhendu, and good afternoon to all the participants who are part of this session. Just to give us brief background, my introduction was given by Shubhendu, but just a brief. I am from the CIO organization in my company. We have a parallel organization, like with Mr. Kamal, represent the CISO organization, which is a global organization. So I am representing the business IT, as mentioned by Shubhendu, and I kind of interact. So we, being a global company, we have a very robust framework, policy framework. We have a governance mechanism. We have multiple layered securities, as mentioned. We have all things in place. We assumed so. But once, with the COVID and the work from home things coming into the picture in the first quarter, March and April, this all hell broke loose, right? And we were finding it very difficult in spite. So the background, we were like, that's what we thought, but we were not prepared for this. But yes, what we were prepared was we could scale up and strike a very delicate balance, because with providing a robust infra to protect the company information and assets, and also to not hinder the productivity. So that was the balance, and that balance was always there. We had to maintain that. And I used to get complaints from the users, oh, this is not allowed, why it is not allowed, small things. And because of a strong infra and which is managed from globally, we had challenges in that. But with work from home, the pressure on me was very high and my organization. So just to give a brief, I take care of India and South Asia Pacific, the Southeast Asia countries for them. So that thing suddenly became everything, all hell broke loose, right? People were in some places in the entity in Malaysia. What happened was they said something like a MCO, movement control order. It came that from tomorrow you're not allowed to come over. So I had to make sure, we being in air conditioning industries, there are customers to serve. That there are discussions going on. We are into the B2B segment, not into commercial segment, into residential or individual. So the challenges were there. The business was always running because we take care of projects, and that was there. So we had to make sure that people have access to the systems, from the basics of providing laptops to everybody, to giving access to critical systems, the CRMs and SAPs, and make sure that everything is secure, and we have a governance mechanism. So that was the nightmare. But yes, what helped, that we could scale up pretty fast. My team and the global security organization kind of scaled up very fast, and we kind of did it successfully. Now that the new normal is work from home, and we are all working from home. So most of us, I would say, because in my organization, we are not a software company like Amazon of the world, where you can't work from. People have to go to office. We have that red, blue stuff, groups. One group comes, we have divided to make sure the whole team is not there. So there are certain things in place. But having said that, the work from home culture is like new normal. Now the and now I would kind of give some of just a couple of things prior to. So I would like to break this my discussion into two parts. One is pre-COVID and post-COVID. The pre-COVID was basically, we found out and we realized the weakest link in the whole chain was the individual, right? The employee. He would click something, he would do something that would open way for a malware to come in, phishing mail. He would not be aware what he's doing, and there were, like any other company, there were hackers trying to break into the company, the network, and get into. We do have a DID in place, multiple layer, as when the rightfully the analogy was the VIPs have multiple security layer, and that's a very good analogy, right? And kind of the redundancy built into it. That was thing, but things changed. Now everybody was a weak link. We had to monitor social media. We had to monitor, because obviously now things which were not there before in the business, like marketing and digital marketing. We have moved from the TV ads to the LinkedIn, social media, Twitters and Facebook. All that thing is happening, right? And websites, and trying to, as in a hyper connected world. So it was a challenging affair. But yes, we are in a better place now. With I would not say we are, because I don't believe that security, you have reached a stage and it is done, right? It is never lag. It's a journey, and as the hackers innovate, you have to innovate yourself to make sure you kind of hackers or intrusions. It's a constant journey, and we are on the journey. So that's all I had to say.
Yes, thank you. I was just about to stop you, and so I'd like to have, we heard Mr. Sengupta's perspective as he mentioned, from the CIO's perspective of, the man responsible to create and manage the infrastructure. Now, we'd like to have Mr. Dhamija's perspective on the challenges, as Anand mentioned, from a CISO's perspective. How do you look at this as from the security angle, and what kind of a nightmare did you face, and going ahead, what kind of a challenge do you foresee? So two parts of it.
Okay, the challenge is yeah, absolutely. So hi, good afternoon, everyone, whosoever is listening over here. So I would like to bring a different perspective over here, that the defensive layer which we have in the IT world is the users of our organization. almost 70% of the people must be using any kind of a office provided laptop, desktop, or mobiles. And in this new normal, we people are working from home. So that means we are no more in the office premises only. So the important aspect which is coming over here is that we have to educate each and every user in terms of do's and don'ts with the respective IT provided laptops and desktops or mobiles. In case, just because of the fault of one user, we don't know what kind of trouble we can get for the whole organization. For example, if a single user has a weak password and his laptop, he has received certain kind of a spare phishing email. So what's going to happen now? He might click on that web link, he might click on that suspicious link, and his whole machine is going to be compromised. Now that machine is going to be used as a hop by the hacker, so that he can perform any kind of a reconnaissance activity, any kind of a vulnerability assessment, any kind of a compromised web application assessment. He can do anything or everything with that laptop itself. So what is the most critical component? We have to make sure that our users are aware about the latest do's and don'ts with respect to IT security policies. Because just like any other function, if we people are sending a bulk email to all the users, they might see that, oh, ye mere kaam ka nahi hai. So in those kind of scenarios, we have to change the mindset of every user. So that is one of the major perspectives. Second thing, it should be the top driven approach. If the seniors or the chairman or the CXOs, definitely they are sending an emails to the users, it gives a weightage to them. So the top down approach is the second most important activity in this field. The third point I would like to bring over here is that suppose we have to keep ourselves updated. Not just suppose, we have to keep ourselves updated with the latest cyber threats which are coming up in the market, how they are behaving, what are their mitigation technologies which are arising in the market. But the challenge over here is to create something offensive for any organization. The whole world is working on that, but to defend that, a very limited set of people are working for that organization. So now what we people have to do, we people have to keep ourselves updated and see what all technologies are available in the market. But to deploy those technologies also, there are a lot of challenges in terms of getting a budget from the seniors to make them understand what this technology is, what kind of attack it is, and how it is can for our organization. And even after getting the budget, it takes time to deploy such technologies. And by the time the technology is deployed to mitigate such threats, we are going to see certain more cyber threats, which we won't be able to defend using those technologies which we have recently deployed. So it's like a race of a cat and a rat. Sometimes the cyber criminals are ahead, but we people have to make sure that we are going to defend our organization in the best possible manner. These are the three challenges according to me.
Thank you, Mr. Dhamija. I'd like to go to Iqbal now, because he has been interacting with a lot of CIOs, and a point that you mentioned, that the organization may be prepared, you got the budget, but then you need to have the right solutions. So from that perspective also, and which perhaps Iqbal would be touching upon in his presentation. So I'd like Iqbal to touch upon more on the challenges that he sees as a solution provider, particularly when proposing a solution to ICS OT customers. So Iqbal, can you touch upon this?
Yeah.
And
so
how what kind of challenges that you see?
So hello everyone again. So there are numerous challenges. There is no one challenge that we hear from the ICS and OT customers. Typically, the IT industry has matured over time, so we see those challenges and we have answered for those challenges from the IT side. But OT and ICS side, these are critical systems, and these are systems designed for 30 years lifespan, 50 years lifespan. And the safety and reliability of those systems is the crucial aspect when we deal with the customers coming from the ICS and OT vertical. So first challenge is being that simply they will tell you that we cannot get a downtime to implement security solution. So that stops your all solution portfolio. Like, how do we install the solutions, or how do we position the solution? So we need to understand what kind of a critical aspects of the process they do into their manufacturing industry, let's say, or if it's an automation industry, for example, energy, oil and gas, or could be power industry. Since they cannot get a downtime, how do we implement security controls? Because the moment we are going to implement security controls, the general perception from the engineering side is that it's going to disrupt the communication, it's going to disrupt all the processes. From the CIO perspective, they don't want to get any downtime, because they will be questionable if the security solution, kind of approves incompatible or basically proves destructive for the operation. So they will be questionable. There will be a big question mark, like who approved this solution? Why you did not do a value engineering exercise? Why you did not do a POC in a backup system? So first critical aspect, I will say the downtime, reliability, or safety aspect comes in the mind when we deal with the ICS and OT customer. Then the second aspect, when you give a good example of defense in depth, and in the traditional medieval time, defense in depth was okay because all those systems are owned by the king or owned by the whoever is administrative body for that whole castle. But here, the systems are divided. IT owns something, OT owns something, and then you bring a firewall, then there is a fight like who is going to operate and manage this firewall? Is it going to be the IT team or OT team? And then is it going to be the only firewall, or there is going to be more component like management solution or integrated endpoint solution? Who is going to manage all this portfolio? So this is more of an integration challenge or management challenge. So first being the compatibility with the ICS and OT environment, and second being the integration aspects and management aspects from the security operations point of view. So these are the two biggest concerns we see as a solution provider.
Thank you, Iqbal. I would request Mr. Dhamija to touch upon this from the ICS and OT perspective, particularly since, and also since you are into manufacturing and major tire manufacturer, and a lot of automation happening in the automotive sector, and we are looking toward the 4.0 environment where these aspects become pretty important. So how do you look at it, and in the CISO community, particularly in the manufacturing, looking at Industry 4.0, what are the 2-3 key points or the concerns that you have?
Okay, so IT and OT, they both are, we should segregate them and we have to take them very seriously. In fact, based upon my opinion, OT is more critical than IT in terms of that, because if we have something with respect to IT, what best can happen? The machine is not going to work, the data center is not going to work. But if something is going to impact the OT network, then it is going to cost us the lives of human beings, because a machine might malfunction in that case. If the program has been designed in such a manner that it is going to perform its purpose in a negative manner, then it might cost the life of a human being. So that we have to take these things very, very seriously. And being the guys from manufacturing industry, security is the topmost concern for us. And we take each and everything very, very seriously. Even though if you are going to enter into the plant, you won't be allowed to enter into the plant without a safety shoes. Even though the probability of happening such kind of incident with a new guy, which is not going to touch base with the machineries and he's not going to go nearby machineries as well, still we take these things very, very seriously. Now, what is the problem with OT is that the coding which we people are using on PLCs are too old. Might be we don't have, might be we are not receiving any kind of updates in the latest purpose, because the objective over here from the plant guy is that the machine is working perfectly fine. He is able to give the production whatever is expected from them, but the mindset of cybersecurity needs to be there in that picture, that if something goes over there, because this machine is connected with the network, even though it is not connected with the internet, but though it is connected with the network of internal IT network, then if that machine is going to be accessed by any hacker, then he can create a disaster in the plant, which is not just going to impact the brand value of the organization, but it will create a sense of you can say the sense of uncomfortable sense among the laborers as well, that if the machine is not going to work perfectly fine, then how come they are going to work and feel comfortable while working with those machines? So it's like the problem for the management as well in terms of branding, and the problem with the labor as well while working with those machines. I hope my voice is loud and clear, because I'm able to see Shubhendu's machine is still right now.
It is okay. It froze for a moment, but it's okay for me.
We can hear you, Kamal. It's some freezing, but voice was clear. Kamal,
perfect. Thank you. Thanks. So what I'm telling you in terms of IT, that we were only focusing on IT earlier, but these days I have seen a lot of companies like Yara Manufacturing in Norway, Saipem Energy and Resources Company Italy, the people are giving a very good focus. Like Apollo Tires, we are also just doing what the best a company can do in terms of, to begin with the OT journey, they have to create a VLANs, segregated VLANs among the plants itself, and those VLANs will be tightly packed so that nobody should be able to access those devices which are packed in a VLAN. And in case of any kind of a network breach, those machines should remain intact. It should not be a scenario that the machines can be compromised very easily, even though they are available on the internal network only, and they cannot be accessed via the internet. So still, we need to keep those machines in an isolation. And this needs to be reviewed every 6 months, because sometimes might happen to just enhance the with that machine, the ports or the routes on the VLANs might be changed. So on the 6 monthly review, we can see that what all things has been changed on that, and accordingly we can take an action against those rule based. We can take action against those routes or ports, whatever it is. That's another perspective I have for the OT. And going forward, whenever we are going ahead with a new machinery, we have to think about the vendor from which we are purchasing those machines, so that we can receive the timely patches with regards to those OT, because it is not going to stop like this. There might be the scenarios that the machines are going to be connected with the internet, and then machines can be troubleshooted remotely and from anywhere in the world, because that is the new normal right now, that the machines can also be accessed from anywhere in the world. So in those scenarios, the vendor should be a reliable one. It should not be like we are purchasing a machine from a vendor who we are not sure that the vendor is going to be there in the near future or not. So if we have a reliable vendor, we can make sure that the patches are going to be delivered to us on a timely manner, and they have their strong IT infrastructure who works on developing the firmware in a very good manner, because it is not only about software, it is about firmware as well while dealing with OT infrastructure. So that's a couple of points from my side regarding OT infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Dhamija. I'd like to give it a different spin and, request Mr. Sengupta to touch upon perhaps how is the organization evolving, because now we have, as Mr. Dhamija also mentioned, OT as a very, very separate, very specialized area. Now, is the CIO role being expanded to also look into the IT component in the OT, or how is it changing, or what's your say, and could you touch upon this?
Okay, so what is happening is obviously the CIO role is evolving, and so usually what happens is, in a normal scenario for a OT thing to work and a manufacturing organization lasts, we are not a process industry, we are process manufacturing, we are discrete manufacturing. We have IoTs and connected devices in our environment. Now, what usually happens is we are the first point of contact for the business, and the business comes to us with. I hope my voice is clear, Kamal, Shubhendu.
Yeah. We can hear you.
It's loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Okay, so it comes to us, and we kind of work on a solution. And what Kamal mentioned, that's absolutely correct. And we have faced the situation where and previously what used to happen is manufacturing used to buy devices, bias to equipment, and they used to buy, and vendor was not support, and we had these instances before where the firmware, there was no currency like for desktop laptop patch deployment, firmware upgrade. In some cases, very correctly, the Kamal mentioned that the vendor, we could not contact the vendor also, so those kind of issues. So now we have a process in place. So it comes to us. Before we deploy the solution, I involve the security organization. We have an internal approval process from putting the OT in place before it actually goes. So we have evolved, and we have evolved by by issues, by facing problems, unfortunately. But the impact was controlled, because in our organization, the internet-facing devices and internet is very limited, and the first barrier to the network is very robust. So the issues were not that high, and the vulnerabilities were managed within time. So yes, we have changed the approach while we approach to deploy a OT solution.
So I'll stop you here at the moment, Mr. Sengupta, because Kamal has to leave, and I wanted the last input
please,
from him. Yeah. So Kamal, as Anand mentioned, the CIO role has evolved. Now, what kind of an involvement does the CISO have in the purchase decision, particularly when we are looking at the Industry 4.0 kind of a deployment and the automation? So how deeply do you go into the you mentioned a bit of it when you said the patches and all the manufacturers you need to make sure. So could you just and say 3 years down the line, how do we see? I won't say 5 years. 3 years is a long time.
So currently, if you're going to procure any kind of a manufacturing industries or components, so what you will see that how the machine is behaving right now in terms of giving the production output to us. That is the objective while doing the procurement of any machine. But we have to think about that security by design should be the principle for them as well, because if security by design is not going to be followed by them, then they will take security as just like a byproduct of that machine. That it's good to have it, but not mandatory to have it. So at the time of designing the firmware, at the time of designing the IT components, at the time of designing the softwares for those machines, they have to think about what can be done or what could have been done if those components have not been inbuilt from the day one itself. The machine, because suppose if the communication between the PLC and the machine is happening in a clear text, so what could happen? The hackers can read those communications very easily and can modify those parameters while it is communicating with the machine is communicating with the PLCs. So the communication should not be a clear text. So those kind of things, those are the things which needs to be in the mindset at the time of developing those machines. So IT people and the manufacturing people, or I can say the mechanical engineers and the IT engineers need to work very closely while designing such kind of components. So this is the last crux for me from my side.
Thank you, Mr. Kamal Dhamija, for joining us. We understand that you have another meeting, and we won't stop you from that. In the digital era, we have to be digitally connected. And in case we have certain questions, repeat to the participants also specifically for Mr. Kamal Dhamija, please send it us on chat, and we will try to get it answered from him.
You can drop an email as well over the email ID dhamija@kamal@gmail.com, and you can easily search me on
Google. Send it to you.
I would be more than happy to answer those questions.
For joining us. And now I'll move to Asif Iqbal. As Kamal, sure. Thank you. So as Anand also mentioned, the role of CIOs has also evolved. But as Kamal was talking about, thank you. That at the TLC level and at the machine level, these things have to be taken care of. Now, from the 14N perspective, do you want to add something on that, and how do you look at it, and also from the your role in this entire scenario?
Yes, so this is one of the aspects we look at from in the mainstream or cybersecurity terminology. We call that a supply chain security. So in terms of what solutions you're acquiring from the market and what solutions you want to deploy, are they cyber secure? Do they have the built-in security? Because that was the original perception when people started implementing security on the OT, that security is afterthought. It's like it's a bolted on, and sometimes it won't work, and they will just remove the security controls, saying that it's impeding our processes, or it's basically counterproductive for our operations. So remove security. But that's not the case right now today, because we have sophisticated attacks and all that. So what we are looking at right now, embedding security in the automation systems itself as a turnkey solution. So we have alliance partnership with a lot of automation vendors, and that is a necessity now, because a lot of customers, even big organizations who are running discrete processes, as Mr. Anand highlighted here, or who are running more of automation industry, they want cybersecure solution as part of the automation system deployment. So any ICS or OT solution they want to deploy, regardless it's a PLC or HMI or the whole DCS system or SCADA system, they want security as part of the whole project itself. So this is one of the challenge also we deal with, and we have a lot of alliance partners in the industry, automation industry, and we are trying to embed security within the automation systems itself.
I'm sure you'll be covering more of this in the presentation. So I have a question for Mr. Anand Sengupta. We all talked about, we heard Kamal also on ICS OT. So which of the ICS OT infrastructure do you think would get most affected due to the digital transformation? And we see this transformation initiative across now, which is kind of an impact of the COVID that it has got really pushed faster, and there's a lot of acceleration on that end. So which ICS OT infrastructure do you think would be most effective during the digital transformation?
So, I can only speak from my scope of work and my organization. Now, for me,
Sure.
so there is a one component which is primarily not to do with manufacturing, where the IoT, it's more of a IoT, which is basically connecting connected devices remotely, and managing them through your remote connection, as mentioned. So where we supply equipment and we manage them remotely, and which are all connected in the world. So for me, that is a very critical, and we have to ensure that we have right security in place to make sure that we kind of access them, because what we are trying to do, those machines are not within our network. So I'm actually, for me, so this is a major area of concern, right? Because a machine, a PLC machine or a equipment lying within my factory premises, within my secure network, because whatever happened, COVID, manufacturing will happen, right? There's no change to that. The workers will come, we are not an industry where people can remotely operate machines, and people has to be there to manage, and equipments are connected on the floor. So that is there. So that is something which is there. And although there's a risk of that, but that is not my area of concern. My area of concern is, and we are still trying to evolve in that when we deploy major equipment outside our office to the customer premises. For example, I install something at the DataQuest office. How do I remotely manage it? With obviously COVID, is that previously we had that option. It was a value add. Previously, it was like, okay, I will do a ref check and then I'll go. But now it is something which is mandatory. We may not be able to go to that site also, right? So that is something which is an area where we have to kind of make sure we have proper intrusion programs, prevent any DDoS attack, because I am trying to connect to the equipment into the network, into the wild, to the open world, right? So that is an area of challenge for me. I hope that answers my question, your question, Shubhendu. That's what you meant, right?
Definitely, to a larger extent. And we will continue with the discussion, but we have a presentation by Asif. So that will give, perhaps answer some of the questions that, or the concerns that you and Kamal had talked about, and in the discussion. And then we will again move to the other questions and also the audience questions. So I would request Asif to present his ideas and the perspective that he has and the presentation. So over to you, Asif.
Sure. So let me just launch this presentation, and I'll remove myself from the screen just to maintain my bandwidth. So I'll disable my camera for now.
Ashok, could you?
Yes.
I'd also,
Is it visible from my side?
Yeah, it is visible. You can just increase the screen.
Is it in full screen? Just to confirm that.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I won't go much of the details on the how the future of manufacturing looks like, because we have limited time frame here. But in general, what we see, we have discussed all these aspects. It's a plethora of many solutions, many technologies that's going to form the future of the manufacturing enterprise. I wanted to start with the future just to give a good idea before having some bad thoughts on the security and then seeing on the various threats and various attacks in the industry. So this is what the future looks like in terms of smart manufacturing. It's a connected and secure ecosystem if security is part of the design process itself. And moving on to the digitization and value chain in the manufacturing sector, there are various verticals within the manufacturing industry. So it's just not like one bulk industry, like as we see like water supply and all that, but it has multiple segments that basically take feed from one side and give feed to the other side. So it's a connected ecosystem which has design, innovation, engineering, prototyping up to the corporate systems and retail area. And in terms of technologies, what we see, these are IT and OT system in general. So in the IT side, we have various aspects, which is basically corporate system providing field services and etc., order inventory management, and retail websites providing the solutions to the end users. Whereas on the OT side, we have smart sensors, production assembly. I see some chat here. Is it a question for me? Okay, it's not for myself. So there are systems which are OT specific that we refer them as OT or ICS or DCS or SCADA systems. So it is a connected ecosystem where we have IT as well as OT operating in a seamless manner. Now, from the smart manufacturing drivers and trends benefit point of view, the drivers for the smart manufacturing is the increased connectivity, artificial intelligence, flexible automation that are driving the smart manufacturing ecosystem, whether it's a critical manufacturing, where we have the manufacturing of vaccination, manufacturing of critical utensils and etc., or critical components, or it could be a manufacturing company just manufacturing toys or kits and stuff. So that is not critical, but essentially it's critical for the business or for the owner because it is generating revenue. But these are the trends we see as a solution provider: autonomous manufacturing, connection of value chain and supply chain, and new value-added services, or you can call it a business diversification. And there are various benefits to the customers and as well as to the owners of the manufacturing organizations. Typically, we call them as asset operators or asset owners. Now, this also has benefits on the environment, but we won't go in the discussion of the environment here. Now, what are the key areas for digital manufacturing or smart manufacturing? These are various aspects we see as a solution provider. So these are changes. These are the key success areas we need to implement in the organization. Could be related with process, governance, data, and organization oriented. However, in the session, we will just focus on security and technology. We could go over briefly on the different aspects from the governance point of view, process point of view, or organization point of view. But since the session is focused more on technology and security, we'll focus just to these 2 points related to this session. Now, when it comes to technology, it's a driving force for smart manufacturing, and there are various solutions and technologies that are being utilized within the manufacturing industry. Now, this may differ depending on the organization's vision and organization's motto, where they want to be in the critical manufacturing industry, where they want to be a sophisticated industry 4.0 organization, or they just want to start on the digital transformation journey. It could be data analytics, could be a wireless communication they want to implement and embed in the manufacturing organization. It could be AI, 3D printing, and etc. And security is an inherent part between all these technologies, and we'll see some examples of that. But what we see as a major trend is 2 different technologies here. These are 2 use cases we see from a lot of manufacturing organizations. They reach out to us for the security implementation. One is the predictive maintenance, and second one is the digital twin. So predictive maintenance is, in some cases, is called as a reliability-centric maintenance for assets. So we know when the assets are going to fail, and then we perform the operations. And in general, predictive maintenance can reduce overall maintenance cost by 30%. So the idea behind smart manufacturing or digital manufacturing is to optimize cost, optimize resources, optimize process. It all goes back to the optimization, and that's where we want to save cost, whether it comes from the maintenance, predictive maintenance point of view, or whether it comes from the automation side. On the automation side, we see a lot of implementation on digital twin, which is basically targeted to reach around like 75 billion euros by 2025. This is the study conducted by Siemens, and we can share some more details about that. So technology is a key driver for smart manufacturing, and technology comes with some challenges. One of the challenges and one of the key driver we have seen is the security. And security basically brings a lot of risk. So security is just not related with technology. It is across people, process, and technology. And these are various risks we see when we deal with the manufacturing industry customers and organizations. So digitization is basically expanding the attack surface. There is a low cyber awareness in the workforce because they are not cyber trained. They are automation engineers. We can't expect them to know what is firewall. We can't expect them to know what is firewall policy. we can't expect them to know what is VLAN, but now they need to learn all these things. They know what is PLC, they know what is process value, they know what is process variable, they know how to operate HMI, but now they need to understand what are security principles, how to securely use email, how to securely use USB stick, how to perform a maintenance on a security solution. So these are the challenges we see from the people point of view. From the complexity point of view, we see a complex ecosystem that is embedded within the, I would say, integrated IT and OT system. And this is what we see as one of the challenge from the risk factor. Let me use a highlighter here so it's clear. So this is the ecosystem issue we see as one of the risks. This is another risk we see from the new partnerships, because the automation is one of the key driver, but they want to diversify the business. They want to diversify the portfolio. They want to bring more suppliers into the manufacturing ecosystem. Even they want customers to participate in the ecosystem if it's a connected manufacturing organization. So this is one of the another aspect we see, because if one company is going to be affected by cyber risk, it's going to have a ripple effect on the partner ecosystem as well, and they will have their own issues, and they will blame the company who was originally attacked or affected by the cyber incident. Likewise, this is a known fact that IT and OT convergence is going to increase the attack surface in the IT and OT connected organization, whether it's a manufacturing or in general any IT OT organization. And this is one of the report from Verizon. Cyber incidents for manufacturers have increased by 157% over the past 3 years, and we'll see some statistics on that. And 62% of the respondents were unable to detect all of their OT assets. And this is one key factor, because if there is no visibility, you don't know what's happening on your assets, whether the communication from east to west or north to south in the technical terminology. And from a technology perspective, this is how it looks like. You will have no unknown devices. I think Mr. Kamal has highlighted it very clearly, PLCs and etc. There could be known devices that are connected to the ecosystem, and those are trusted or may not be trusted devices. In case of connectivity, the connectivity could happen from campus, branch, factory, or mobile workforce, as is the case right now. They are connecting from remote home offices. Even customers are utilizing that connectivity, and the connectivity could be provided by wireless connection, 5G connection, or could be a WAN connection. Why they need the connectivity? To operate on the compute ecosystem. So to operate on the data center, to access the services, and to perform their operations. So this is going to expand the numerous edges and increase the attack surface. The attack surface is basically not just limited to the IT side. Now it's expanding to the OT side as well, where you have the critical systems running, you have the machineries running, you have the robots running, and you have the other operations running in the ecosystem. And some of the examples we have seen during the discussion from Mr. Sengupta as well as from the other panelists, that there could be many means for attacking that organization. It could be phishing, malware, or internal threats, ransomware. It could be the device vulnerabilities, because those devices were designed 10 years down the line or 15 years down the line, and they do not have embedded security in it. And 25% of the cyber attacks are DDoS attacks that are originating from the IT and going to the OT. And phishing was the top cyber risk for small manufacturers. That is in 2018. And I'll just show you some of the highlight how email being utilized now, even in 21st century or in 2020, to attack biggest organizations like Norsk Hydro, that is attacked by Locker-Guga ransomware. So these are the attacks we see originating from the email chain, but they have a very drastic effect on the ICS or OT ecosystem, because they are utilizing something called as ransomware. What does ransomware do? It's a typical IT-oriented malware, but now that has capacity to infect the ICS and OT systems and encrypt data relying on them, challenging the business continuity, challenging the operational aspects of the ICS and OT organization. So it's basically stalling the whole manufacturing organization by just encrypting everything, whether these are IT systems or OT systems, because the attackers have just only one goal: to disrupt the infrastructure and gain money. And that the easiest way to utilize is the ransomware as a key resource for them. And this is one of the snapshot in the industry. And if you see, is going to grow from 4 million to $5 billion plus. This is the industry we are basically dealing with. So ransomwares are being utilized to target the industry. And previous slide, I have highlighted some of the biggest manufacturing organizations. Now it's moving on year by year. So Maersk shipping company was attacked. ASCO Parts was attacked, who manufacture basically the airplane or airline industry parts. Likewise, the Snake Ecans ransomware attacked the Honda manufacturing plant. And in previous session, we have seen example of Garmin, who essentially paid actually $10 million to get the decryption key and decrypt their system. And there was a 5-day downtime. So imagine a 5-day downtime for the manufacturing organization. They are not able to produce the system, or they are not able to produce the solutions or products for its customer. It could be a critical manufacturing organization, or could be a toy manufacturing organization. It is being affected by these kind of attacks. And we have seen the COVID-19 campaign as well, where a lot of CIOs and C-level people were targeted by malicious emails that here is your test result, or here is your PCR result, or just go to the national organization here and perform your COVID test because you're being tested positive. So in a mindset of a human, they just click on the link and they are infected. So there are various issues we see when it comes to the email and ransomware, and it requires kind of a defense in-depth approach when we want to implement security. Moving on to the statistics, for example, if I relay, there was a study conducted by Temple University in the US, and they have basically analyzed just ransomware attacks over past 7 years and infecting only critical industries or critical infrastructure. And as you see on the screen, in 2020, they have found 297 attacks just for critical infrastructure sectors over that timeline. And if I highlight critical manufacturing, there were 55 attacks just for critical manufacturing. So imagine like at least 5 attacks per year. So imagine 5 different manufacturing companies were targeted by using ransomware over 7 years period of time. And this is going to grow. And I won't go what will be the consequences of these attacks. And we have seen some examples provided by the panelists. The drastic damage could be the operations disruption, as well as life safety, or damage to the human aspects, so which we call as compromised environmental and human safety here. So these are some of the challenges. To overcome these challenges, numerous edges must be protected. We have seen this slide before. Users and devices are going to participate in the ecosystem coming from campus, branch, or factory. They need access to the cloud services. If it's IoT-based implementation or IIoT-based implementation, the cloud could be provided by a private company or could be a public cloud. They will go through the network. They could come from the off network, like from their home or from their mobile phone, from their car, or etc. And you will see numerous edges that would require security, or that needs to be protected. So these are choke points, or these are the entry points where the users will come in or devices will communicate. So these all edges needs a protection from the security control implementation point of view. And there may be another challenge from the governance point of view, that is more of a CISO and CIO role. Now, who is going to manage and operate this infrastructure? Is it going to be IT team or OT team? And we have discussed some points on these aspects initially during the discussion. Or is going to be operated by third party? Whether the solutions provide better return on investment from a chief risk officer point of view. They will look at the return on investment. Then if there is integration available, where the solution can be integrated internally in the existing ecosystem, or if they are implementing like a greenfield implementation, can the solution integrate with the automation system, and whether the automation vendors can validate the solution. So this is one of the key aspects we discussed just now in few points, that there should be a supply chain security, and security should be part of the ecosystem itself. So that is the challenge. Also, we see that a lot of manufacturing organizations are asking built-in security as compared to bolted-on security, and that requires a validation and accreditation from the automation vendor for any security implementation. And to summarize all these details, we see sophisticated threats, digital attack surface, ecosystem complexity, and compliance requirement. This is the factor applicable for both internally for the organization as well as externally if the organization is a regulated organization. If they are dealing with multinational implementation, so they may need to comply to certain regulatory frameworks. So this is another challenge as well. And the solution for that is to follow a holistic approach for cybersecurity. They need to combine people, process, and technology, and just not technology. The technology should be an integrated technology. On the people side, they need to look at the governance, security awareness, and security culture. from the process point of view, it should be a risk-based approach. There should be a design process for better security architecture, and that security implementation should be audited by a competent authority, whether it's internal audit mechanism or external. Likewise, technology should provide all these three pillars: visibility, control, and actionable intelligence. And there are various aspects are available in the industry. The standards are available, as well as the solutions are available. From the C-level point of view, from the business context, it should be the management of risk, and from the automation point of view or technical point of view, it should be automation of process as well as automation of security infrastructure. Moving on to the topic of Fortinet, what we provide in terms of security solutions, it includes solutions that are compliant with industry standards, so organizations can achieve compliance with these standards as well as internal compliance framework requirement. Likewise, it is based on a defense in depth approach. When I say defense in depth, so I'll just take 1 minute on this slide, and I'm almost about to finish my presentation. We have seen one example provided by one of the panelists, Mr. Senugupta, that in the medieval time we used to have defense in depth. Now there are various definitions in the industry about defense in depth, and what you see on the screen is one example of defense in depth based on certain standards. So we have 62443 standard that is very specific to ICS and OT. That suggests basically the organization need to implement security controls in terms of deter, detect, delay, deny, and defeat pillars. So there should be a security mechanism on all these different segments that can provide detection or delay mechanism for any attack, or deter mechanism for any malicious actor, or defeat mechanism to thwart any attacks. So this is the approach from 62443. Whereas NIST CSF have divided that into identify, protect, detect, and respond and recover. The more granular approach is available right now from the MITRE ATT and CK for ICS. It's a very ICS specific framework. They are known for enterprise cybersecurity framework. Now they have released ICS and OT specific framework. And what this suggests is basically for any cyber attack to happen, it has to cross various stages. Like the same case, if somebody wants to attack a castle, it has to basically evade some challenges. It has to basically evade some stages. It could be a moat, it could be a tunnel, it could be some military personnel or something, or human aspect of security. Likewise, for any cyber attack to happen, it has to start from somewhere, and then it has to go certain stages to basically impair a process, what we call as impact the process, or to disrupt the communication, or to disrupt the infrastructure. Now, when it comes to defense in depth, we need to understand from security implementation point of view that we need to implement security controls to stop this attack from happening. So we need to have control just before the initial access, as well as after the execution or before the execution, similarly before the persistence and after the persistence, and likewise discovery, lateral movement, and etc. So we need to have security controls across all these different stages. Likewise, it could be a different approach depending on the organization's culture. It could be a NIST CSF based defense in depth implementation, or could be 62443. So in general, we need to have a layered defenses. That is the key message here. And Mr. Senugupta has highlighted what is the layered defenses means in the beginning of the session. Now, Fortinet offers various platforms and solutions. What we offer is an integrated platform based on different security principles that provides an integrated solution approach to cybersecurity. And this whole solution can be automated and can be integrated with third-party ecosystem. And this is referred as Fortinet Security Fabric. The best part of the Fortinet Security Fabric ecosystem, it is a broader platform where you can integrate Fortinet solution as well as third-party solutions and automate all the security operations, providing more of a security automation, because the idea behind digital manufacturing and smart manufacturing is the automation of process or automation of certain aspects of any process. Likewise, security should not be a kind of a component that is impeding the process or disrupting process. It should be a technology that is giving benefit to the automation, as well as the solutions can provide some kind of automation. So we call it as a security automation approach. And on the other side, the solutions can be compliant to any industry standard. Here, I've just put an example of NIST CSF. And you will see in the next slide that there are broadest portfolio of solutions available from Fortinet, and that can be mapped to different security controls from NIST CSF or it could be IEC 62443. Likewise, all these solutions are supported by Threat Intel platform, and one of the panelists from Toyota, I just forgot the name, he has highlighted very good point for securing the PLCs and minimizing the attack surface by segregating into VLAN and having inspection. So FortiGuard Labs provide that kind of a capability for PLCs and controllers, providing visibility of the ICS and OT components, providing control on the communication, and that control can enable actionable threat intelligence. And there are more details to it, and we can probably share it later. From the third-party integration point of view, to maintain the supply chain security, the solutions can be integrated with third-party portfolios. There are more than 300 solution vendors that can integrate with the Fortinet Security Fabric. It could be a case where the manufacturing organization has already implemented some solutions from third party and they want to integrate with Fortinet, or they have already Fortinet solutions and they want to incorporate some new greenfield implementation into the Fortinet Security Fabric. And this slide basically summarizes all those different solution vendors, whether the solution vendors are cybersecurity solution provider or automation vendor in the specific industry. It could be Schneider, Siemens, ABB. And we have alliance partnership throughout all these vendor portfolios, and then they can be integrated or they can validate the Fortinet solutions, or in some cases the Fortinet solutions are part of their automation portfolio. And that finishes my presentation. If there is a question, we can discuss or we can talk about that.
Thank you, Mr. Iqbal, for the wonderful presentation and quickly taking us through different security threats, the approach and the framework, as well as the Fortinet Security Fabric, the security automation approach, and the entire product portfolio, and also to a certain extent answering Mr. Kamal's concern about the TLC issues and how it needs to be inbuilt. We have 2 poll questions, and I'd request our coordinator, Mr. Ashok, to help us with that. And after the poll questions, we'll take up the discussion. So the first poll question is, which of the following is #1 criteria for your cybersecurity technology selection process? There are 2 options, and I request the participants to choose one from one of these, and whatever they have or their thoughts they have on whether it is advanced feature for securing ICS OT infrastructure, or whether it is cost effective even if some of advanced features are not available. So your options, please. So the #1 criteria for your cybersecurity technology selection process. Okay, so the #1 criteria according to our participants is the advanced feature for securing ICS OT infrastructure. Great. And Ashok, may I request you to again play the second poll? Thank you. So here is the second question. Which of the following is #1 pain point for your cybersecurity technology selection process? And there are 3 options to choose from. The pain point is they don't offer local and centralized deployment and or management. They don't support ICS OT protocols, lack on anomalies and threats. And the third one, they don't offer third-party integration capabilities. Okay, so here are the result. For the first point, nobody is actually, so it's actually a 60-40 between the second and third option. so don't support ICS OT protocols. And the third one, which is 40% people think that I mean, their concern is that they don't offer third-party integration capabilities. So I just, quickly seek the feedback or reaction from both of you, Mr. Sengupta and Mr. Iqbal. So is Mr. Sengupta there? Yeah. So I seek your, reaction on these results. How is it as per your expectations, or do you think
It is perfectly.
it's different from your thought process, and if so, why?
No, I don't think so. The first one was absolutely what I kind of. Second part, second question is also was good, but that's fine. I think this is expected because there are different background, different people coming from different
So would you like to add?
industries. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So do you see anything else? I mean, then in the second question, they don't offer local and centralized deployment or management options. So that question, that option, nobody has actually selected. So do you see that as a challenge or as a pain point from your perspective or your industry perspective?
Yes, I do. I do see in some cases. In my case, it is a challenge, a pain point specific to my industry. That's why I said, the second question, there could be a lot of people, different background. Yes, because we would, some companies do not. I once met a vendor, they could not remotely, they have to have some person on site. But I think probably what has happened is with COVID, a lot of things have changed. Now people don't want to, so I don't, that is the first is irrelevant, irrelevant now. Even they will not send. So that's my thought, to be very honest. That's why I said, this is expected. COVID has changed everything.
Right, completely. So Iqbal, would you like to add, or was this what you expected, or?
It is what I expected, exactly. So it is what I expected, and really Mr. Anand has highlighted very well. It depends on the perception of the audience, whether which industry they are coming from, because in some cases, let's say a remote substation or remote manufacturing site is in desert. For the case like where I live right now, we have a lot of critical infrastructure in the desert, and really you can't really send person there. There needs to be a local management capability. But now, as Mr. Anand highlighted, that nobody is going to go there because of COVID. They need a remote connectivity, so they will be utilizing a centralized management platform to log into the remote site. But in some cases, it is not possible. If it's an energy vertical, let's say offshore implementation for oil extraction, somebody need to be there on site. So depends on which industry we are dealing with.
Great. So since we are already, I'll just have one question for both of you, and first to Anand. That how do you look at it? Are you happy with the existing industry standards for in this entire cybersecurity space, or do you see there's more to be done? And how compliant are the vendors? We have one vendor here, I mean, Fortinet, a solution provider, and perhaps it could also be a good feedback for them.
So, my area, and to be very honest, and I wanted to touch this, and I'm going away from OT and IT. And what is now the new focus is that we are going hyper connected. We are going to virtual world. Now, what is important is, and which is in my, and all companies where the IT laws are getting more firm by the governments, privacy law, the privacy laws, the equivalent of GDPRs are going to prop up in every country, right? And I would require industry standards would evolve. And India did not have a proper IT Act. Now it has come into picture. I don't remember, some years back. And I think that, and frankly, it has nothing to probably do with Fortinet or OTA and IT in the sector, but this is some area where your what is security? It's about protecting your company's assets and information, right? So I am talking about the second part, the information part, and that is going to play a very critical role. And slowly, and I frankly, foresee that we are going to have an equivalent of GDPR coming for India, if not already there. So that is where my idea is, and my thought is slowly it's going to happen that way. That's all I
Thank
had.
you, Anand. Yeah, thanks a lot. You touched upon a very important point, privacy, and I would like Asif to kind of react to it. Also, the second part was wanted to understand more on the industry standards from the OT perspective over, and since we are getting hyper connected, we are seeing IoT enabled DDoS and all of those things. So Asif, could you please
Sure. So
react?
from the privacy, yes, is going to be a challenge when we have the interconnected ecosystem, or Mr. Anand, how basically he refers as a hyper connected. It's just not connected, it's a hyper connected. Now your connectivity across the smart homes, they are participating in the whole connected ecosystem. You have mobile devices talking to each other and all that, and it will have private information on that. It will have some private communication on that. It is like how the new generation don't see it, but from the CIO and CISO point of view, if something goes wrong, the mandates are going to catch them and then bring them to the court. For example, recent case of online hotel organization that was basically attacked from the Amazon, and they had leaked all the personal information of the visitors and etc. So which was unimaginable. So all those assets, all those information are personal information, and now it's available to the public, and public can basically exploit that information. So this is one of the challenge from the privacy point of view as well, when we have the customers and end user participating in the connected ecosystem. And yes, there are GDPR like laws available. There is a law in the US as well. It started with the PCI DSS. It was only for the payment card industry, but now it's going on the personal level as well. How we share information with customers, how we exchange information with the organization, and etc. From the regulatory framework point of view, to answer your second question, Mr. Anand has said that it's not really applicable, or it's not really relevant to Fortinet. It's a general perception, and really that's the case here. It's not for Fortinet. It's a general perception that the nations need to come, and nation needs to come up with some regulations. For example, if you want to implement a security control in a critical infrastructure in Russia, and if it's not approved by the Russian authorities, national security authorities, you cannot implement that firewall there. So you cannot implement the technology there. So it has to be compliant by the Russian national security. Likewise, now we have NISD for the Europe, which is the NIS framework, which suggests all the 5 different critical infrastructure, including manufacturing, oil and gas, and energy, to comply with certain regulatory requirements, that if any cyber incident happen, they need to report back to the authority. Likewise, in India, we have broadest portfolio of automation industries, and right now we lack for any regulation there, a national regulation suggesting all the operators or all the asset owners to comply with security requirements. So that is one key area and one deficiency we see in terms of security framework development. There are so many standards available on international level, but on the regional and national level, the implementation is very slow. I hope that answers the second part.
Shubhendu, we can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Am I audible?
No, I can hear you, Asif. Asif, I can hear you, but I couldn't hear Shubhendu. Shubhendu just dropped off. So I had some network issues, so I moved the location. Laptop battery was also.
Yeah, I was facing the same network issue, but yeah. So thank you, Iqbal, for explaining it so in a so simple way. And I would like to call it a day for the session today. We had a wonderful discussion, and just to end it on what Mr. Sengupta and Iqbal pointed out, the security and is definitely important, and we know that we need a layer mechanism. And one of the most important thing is that there is a need for the country to come out with a regulation, particularly since we are, it's not just the cyber security per se, but from the since we are moving towards an industry 4.0 environment where we see a lot of connected devices, machine talking to machine, and that requires perhaps a different kind of a security regulatory mechanism and the policy framework. With this, I'd like to thank you again. Thank you, Mr. Anand Sengupta. Thank you, Mr. Kamal Dhamija. He had to leave early because of other commitments. Thank you, Mr. Asif Iqbal, for making it such an interactive session and walking us through the security essentials. And I would also like to thank Fortinet, our partners, for the technology session today. And on behalf of Cybermedia and DataQuest, I would also like to thank our participants who joined us, participated with us in the poll, sharing their views. I'd also request all participants to share their feedback, which will be really valuable for us to improve our next series of webinar. And the video, this interaction would be available as a video on demand on DataQuest YouTube channel for you to watch it again, and feel free to share it. And with this, thank you again. And signing off now, I'm Shubhendu Parth, your host for today. Stay safe, stay home, and Jai Hind. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Anand. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Thank you, Asif.
Thank you.
See you.